Start, Joy.
Can I start? Can I
Go
start?
ahead. Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to African Fintech Podcast. And I'm your host for today's amazing episode. I'm Joy Adako Malizo. And I have a wonderful guest on today's episode. He is the CEO of Layup Technologies, Mr. Andrew Ketzvinkel. Welcome, and how are you doing today?
Very good, Joy. Thank you for having me on today's podcast.
Hope you're having an amazing time.
Thank you. Very excited to chat with you and explore what we're doing at Lab Technologies.
Interesting. So, you are the amazing CEO of Layup Technologies. I would love for you to take us or walk us through the origin of Save Now and Buy Later.
Sure. Save Now, Buy Later is a product that allows a consumer to spread the cost of a purchase into bite-sized chunks. It's interest-free. There's no credit checks, and effectively, once the consumer has saved for that item, they will receive some kind of reward or incentive. That could be through cashback or a bonus reward. This really assists consumers that are unable to get credit or do not have a credit rating and therefore have a affordability issue. It is a perfect way to generate financial inclusion across Africa in a very sustainable and ethical manner.
Oh, that's beautiful. So, I would like to ask you, what inspired you to introduce the alternative payments approach?
So it really stemmed off a problem that I was facing in my early 20s, where I myself battled with affordability. I could see many of my friends and family members battling with the same situation. And when it came down to high value purchases, it was too risky and too out of reach for one person to be able to afford that upfront payment. This I felt was prohibitive. It felt that the economy was driving you towards having to take out credit. And I felt that there was a better way and a more ethical and sustainable way, as I mentioned earlier, to provide a solution to consumers in the market.
Okay, so if you're trying to tell us about everything regarding Layup Technologies, people would want to know the benefits. So, what are the key benefits of Save Now and Buy Later? Because that's what is the key point that people are looking for.
Sure. There's a host of key benefits for the end consumer. You can start off with the fact that it's interest free. There's no late fees or penalties or interest charged on these payments. The consumer also doesn't have to go through any kind of financial credit check. This removes the barrier to entry for many consumers that don't have the KYC information in order to apply for credit. The third benefit is that it teaches the consumer what it means to systematically save for something worthwhile on the horizon. And by doing so, once they've achieved that goal, they're rewarded through an incentive. And that could be a cashback reward or a boost reward where that consumer can actually have additional money to now spend at that retailer. This is a way for consumers to spread the cost of a big purchase over a period of time in a safe, secure manner, where if they decide to change their mind and want to buy something else or get their money back, they're able to get a full refund to the amount that they save. So there's no penalty or punitive charges onto the consumer. The other benefit is that this really creates an environment of healthy savings because consumers are rewarded once they reach that end of their goal through that cashback incentive. This creates a catalyst of consumers getting rewarded for achieving their goals. And we've seen this time and time again that consumers really love to buy in this way and be rewarded along their journey.
Okay, so how does Save Now Buy Later help consumers develop financial disciplines and avoid debt?
Well, I mean, I touched on it already. It's the ability to learn to systematically save for something worthwhile on the horizon. We live in a world where we consumed by immediate gratification from looking at social media or trying to keep up with our friends and the Joneses, as they say. And this is a great way to educate consumers, especially young consumers that are just getting into the financial sector, what it means to actually put money away towards a specific item and be rewarded once they've reached that goal. So we're generating a community of people that value savings over credit. And by doing so, these consumers can actually benefit from getting out of unwarranted debt, or actually building up the financial data to actually assist them in getting into the financial environment without major risks of taking on too much that they effectively can't afford.
That's beautiful. So, what are the major challenges in scaling SNBL across different African countries?
Sure, I think every African country has got its own complexities and governance, and it would be very important before going and entering into any new jurisdiction that due diligence is done prior. You've got different regulations, you've got different banking systems, and therefore, before one would have to scale into other jurisdictions, it would be very important to make sure that your governance is in check and the ability to actually scale that product within that environment is tested and piloted, if you will, before actually going full hog into launching into a new country. At this point, we are sub-Saharan, and we are focusing on this area of the market. It's the same jurisdictions, it's the same regulations and governance, and it's allowing us to scale. But we do have our sets across Africa, and as we scale as a young startup, we will look and identify those risks and challenges and tackle them accordingly.
Okay, so are there any sector that are benefiting from SNBL in Africa?
Yeah, so from a retail perspective, there's a host. I've touched on the fact that we really see the need of this type of solution for high value purchases. Probably the number one category would be home improvements. This would be your building materials. This would be things like tiling, roofing, paint work, and then you move into other home equipment stuff like home appliances, so your kitchenware, your fridges, and your washing machines, etc., to TVs and tech products. And then we've also got some really kind of interesting industries such as for example, funeral parlors, and this is now obviously a very sad kind of thing to save towards, but it's a very necessary thing to save towards, where someone is planning for the future and understanding the cost attached with that when that abruptly happens in someone's life. So we really across verticals and industries. Another two industries that I find very interesting is both the medical and travel industry, and being able to assist people with elective procedures, and then on the travel side for leisure travel with family and friends. And we're seeing a lot of scale within those verticals.
So how do Save Now and Buy Later build strong relationship with their customers?
So what we've seen is that we've got 1 in 3 customers coming back and using our system again. So that's a 30% return rate. It's a very high returning rate, and customers have got multiple payment plans going on at once for different values, for different products that they're purchasing. So we believe that we're creating a community a community that we want to serve incredibly well, that they can learn to trust us, and use our technology and services. And by doing so, we're going to create efficiencies for them. We're going to make it more convenient. We're going to make it a great customer experience. And therefore, we would hope that customers come back and use us again and again through their journey of their life.
Interesting. So, how does Save Now, Buy Later contribute to the goal of financial inclusion in Africa?
Well, we are tackling the affordability gap. So if I just take South Africa alone, we are looking at 1.27 trillion rand in consumer household debt. Now that is an astonishing number, and that's just South Africa alone. So when you look at how many people are effectively locked out of the economy, you're looking at more than 60% of the adult population locked out of the economy, can't get access to financial services. Now, there's an inherent problem with that, in that it's a chicken and egg story, is that the consumer is unable to get out of the unwarranted debts in order to build the credit score, in order to get access to financial services. So we are of the view of providing them prepayment services that gets them access to the products or the services that they're looking to purchase, which is a win-win for both the merchant and for the customer. The merchant is able to benefit from additional consumers buying from them, and the consumer is able to now access those products and services in a far more affordable and non-risky way that essentially will get them through to the finishing goal without going into unwarranted debt. By doing this, we are solving financial inclusion within South Africa and hopefully one day across Africa.
Okay, so how are you able to envision the future of SNBL in the next 5 to 10 years?
I believe that it's going to morph and mushroom out accordingly. It's we're still at the infancy of this. There are very few players and very few players at the stage that we find ourselves in. So I believe it's going to morph out into different attributes and features within the SNBL kind of umbrella, and that's super exciting for us, because one thing is for certain, is that we're not going to eradicate the consumer household debt overnight. And therefore, there's always going to be a market for us to serve. There's always going to be a new entrance of consumers that are moving into being able to be to get access to financial institutions, i.e. people that are starting to build up a credit record, or graduate from university, or get into the workforce. And therefore, there's a market to serve, as long as we can kind of foresee. And that's super exciting for us, because if we can chip away at that consumer household debt through sustainable and financially inclusive services and products, this can greatly benefit generations that are still to come. And that's our modus operandi.
Okay, so your company was founded in 2018, I believe so. And
Yeah.
I would want you to tell me the struggles and the challenges that you've been able to overcome, and how have you been able to get this far? Because it's not easy.
No, certainly, and it's definitely come with its challenges. I think that, look, there's a host that come to mind, but I think in Africa, especially around the South African area, access to capital is very tricky. The market, or the venture capital market, are more interested at showing real live data and validation, proof of concept. And that proof of concept needs to be quite material. It can't be just, your friends or family members just starting to use the product. And that's kind of where a lot of ideas end up dying, unfortunately, if they're not sustained through that difficult period, because people give up hope and therefore move away from that potentially $1 billion idea. where fortunately, in what the approach that we've taken is that we've stuck it out. We've got through the COVID period, and we've managed to find a way in order to keep the lights on and get the funding that we needed in order to build out the vision and dream that we have as an organization. So access to capital has always been a big problem in South Africa, and then you've got your challenges of skill sets. Depending on what kind of business that you're building. If you take our example, it's tech driven, and it's very regulative. So we've got to engage with the banks. We've got to get licenses. We've got to build the technology from the ground up. And in order to do so, that takes time, takes money, and it takes resources. And finding the right people when you are just starting out is very tricky. You've got to maybe convince a very experienced person that's in a corporate and a comfy position at a big, large organization, and convince them to come over to your startup that's got all the risks and ups and downs attached to it. So it's definitely changed and improved over the kind of 6 years that we've been working at this. But there's definitely still a long way for us to go as a African continent compared to some of the other places around the world that we've seen really adopt startup culture and the funding requirements and resources that are required to scale that business.
Okay. You really gave an in-depth understanding on that. I would want to ask, what are the short-term and the long-term goals for Leo?
Short-term goals would definitely be to continue to scale across South Africa. I still feel there's lots of growth to happen in our country alone, and there's a large enough market in order to serve. But our eyes are very set on scaling across the continent. So we've already cherry-picked different jurisdictions that we think that are the right markets to go into next. And there's a massive wave of consumers that are totally unbanked, underserved, have access to mobiles and banking facilities, but are not really adopting that technology. So if we feel that over the next 5 to 10 years that there's going to be a massive surplus of new consumers that are entering into the market that previously weren't there, we think that there's an enormous market to go after and serve. And our game plan is to solve the financial inclusion problem across Africa as our purpose statement. And by doing so, we need to be in as many countries as possible.
Okay, that's beautiful. So, in respect of everything that you've talked about, where do you see the company? How big would you want to call your company?
Well, my game plan is to build a very large organization. It's not necessarily about the amount of people that you have, but it's really about the kind of vision and mission and purpose of what you're doing, why you're doing it, what gets us up in the morning, the reasons behind that. And I think when you sit and you grapple with the state of our economy, you understand how many people are disadvantaged and like I mentioned earlier, locked out of the economy. You really start seeing the impact that this type of concept can achieve across the continent. So for me, it's most certainly growing an organization through success and service, partnering with retailers and incumbents like banks across the continent in order to provide this type of technology into the hands of millions of consumers, and through the correct distribution channels and organizations that we can partner with, we will be able to scale that rapidly to the hands of these consumers that are in various places of the continent.
Okay, so you focused on financial inclusion through alternative payment solutions. So what are the solutions that you've preferred so far over the years for financial inclusion?
So the way that we've looked at it is that we have built a variable recurring payment system at its core. And then what we've done is that we have enabled businesses through prepayment technology. That prepayment technology is efficient, it's fast, it's reliable, it makes it cheaper, better, faster for that business to use. By doing so, that creates the efficiencies for the business and it creates the convenience for the end consumer. So there are multiple products that we have developed, and the Save Now Buy Later is one of those products. Traditionally, there's a way of paying in South Africa or across Africa called labor. And what we did as a starting point in the company was we digitized an existing payment product that was in the market that was traditional and manual. And now we've advanced our thinking into various prepayment services, all with the premise that the consumer is not going to be charged interest. The consumer is not going to have to go through a credit check. And the consumer is not going to get charged late fees and penalties if they decide to change their mind and get their money back. And those components are very critical to our value set and our belief system of why we do what we do. We are a B2B, B2C company that enables that technology for the business, but it's their consumers that we are valuing the most and saying, if you engage with these consumers and create the convenience for these consumers, they're going to come back and purchase from you again and again and again, all through their life. And that might be them moving into a credit environment, or that might be them asking for a loan from that retailer. So it's more of understanding your customer lifetime value and the benefits that you would get from providing this type of service to the consumer that's early on in that journey.
Okay, that's interesting and beautiful. So Layman is also a digital recurring payment built for e-commerce and point of sale. So what are those strategies that you are using or you've used to stay in game over the years?
Yeah, so I'll start out the in-store side because I found that more exciting in that the in-store environment is a complex place to really innovate. Large retailers have got their system set up, are very risk averse of adding new features and new products onto that in case of any kind of downtime or breakage or capex cost in order to do so. So what we did, which we found super innovative, is that we've built out a value-added service application that actually sits on the credit card machine, at the terminal, and mainly focusing on Android-based terminals. And this has given those large retailers a rapid go-to-market solution that requires no system integration and heavy lifting, and will get them into an environment they can now provide this service to their customers in a very fast and rapid way. What it ends up doing is that we can then end up centralizing that environment so that there's one central view for that retailer to get real-time information and reporting of what is happening within that prepayment service that they're offering. How many customers are taking it up, how many customers are deciding to change their mind, what is the store value, and etc. So now the data that you're actually giving to that retailer is far superior than the existing information that they're sitting with right now. Then from the consumer benefit is that the consumer still gets all the benefits of what it would be like if you were running this on e-commerce, which would be a digital payment, but in a cash environment. So what we've done is we've partnered with a large PSP payment service provider that allows us to accept cash in over 276,000 cash environments. So this allows a cash customer to effectively do the same thing of being able to pay in store bite-sized chunks, but without having the inconvenience of having to travel back to the store to make a subsequent payment. This means that they can do that cash payment from the comfort of their home at their local grocer. And this reduces costs. It reduces cancellations or default or unfulfillments, and therefore giving a greater customer experience, giving customers the ability to make those payments timely and correctly, and therefore that benefit translates back to the merchant, which is what I said earlier. It's a win-win for both the merchant and the customer. So instead of creating barriers for the end consumer that force them down a road that potentially they don't want to be a part of, we've rather created environments that enable that customer to be able to make those easy payments in a safe, secure, interest-free way.
Okay. Okay. We've come to the end of today's episode. But before we go, would want to say it's a big very thank you to Mr. Andrew for having us. We are grateful.
Thank you, Joy. It's been fantastic to be here. I love what you guys are doing, and yeah, very happy to support, and all the best for the future.
Thank you so much. So everyone, we're going to see you in our next episode. Please make sure you find this very useful by